Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Howdy, y'all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, anywhere in the world where the USA Global TV and Radio audience is today. We're always available on the YouTube archive and on several other channels. I'm Red O'Loughlin. I'm the host here on The Wise Ones today, and I'm very, very honored to have a friend, a local business owner here in the Houston, Texas area to join us today as a guest. And a brief introduction, Jane Moughon is an entrepreneur, has been, seems like forever and ever and ever. She's been a professional recruiter, a speaker and author, 35 Silent Business Killers, I think is the name of her book. Also Letters from Mom and Your Personal Success Funbook. She's a contributing author to other books too. She has a major background in accounting and other business practices. A career counselor, teacher, trainer, coach, professional resume writer. She's been involved in just a number of different things over the years, but more recently, she's come to fall in love with health and wellness, and we're going to talk about a little bit of everything. So, Jane, please join me.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so you started out in the corporate world, and then you ended up I guess you started out in the entrepreneurial world, if I remember right. Then you kind of got a little hand in some accounting and other HR and employee relations and other things for a while. And then you kind of got close to, what is my passion, and kind of change things again. So kind of lead us, very briefly in the next couple of minutes, through that whole evolution of how things were and then how they changed.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you. So when I was 3, I was diagnosed with eczema, and that's a skin condition that's very painful and one thing and another. So I've dealt with that for years and years. And then one day when I was, I think 12 or 13, I looked into a cabinet that's in our kitchen, and I saw all of these different bottles of prescriptions that my mother had. And I vowed to myself, I am never going to do that. Never, never, never. When I was moved to Houston, my parents sent me an article about zinc and about eczema. And I took some zinc, and oh my gosh, Red, I was like shot out of a cannon. I huffed and puffed with energy for 3 days because apparently my body was so depleted of zinc. And that set me on a journey of over 30, 35 years of my now passion, which has really been my passion all along, but it was kind of dormant, is that about nutrition and vitamins and supplements and alternative health practices and just on and on. And I didn't realize that it had been that many years until I started teaching a class this past year and started counting back. Oh my gosh, it's been a long time. So I've studied so much about like I say, nutrition and health and vitamins, and I've done a lot of alternative medicine type things myself. So that's how my passion got started.
What's interesting, one of those things that we don't think of very much are vitamins. I mean, they're in some of the foods and some of the supplements, but it's amazing how one or two can really make a major, major difference. For instance, vitamin B12. It's one that has to go under the tongue because it's disrupted by, it's a cobalamin, it's disrupted by stomach acid. But I was doing some research recently on Parkinson's disease and the plaque-like aggregates in the brain. B12 destroys them. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but one of the major causes of, or not causes, manifestations of the disease. And there's a lot of research out there, but there's not a lot of data that just tells people. And B12 deficiency mimics Alzheimer's. I mean, so just a lot of things out there. So when you start getting into some of those things, you dive and you dive and you keep going and you don't come up for air, you get down to some areas that, whoa, I didn't know that. And it's just,
For sure.
it's all the time. It's happening to me. I mean, just, well, I thought I knew a little bit about this stuff, but I guess I don't. And just keep going.
You and me both. I keep researching, learning more and more.
Well, where do you research most of your stuff at?
Oh, I have lots of doctors that I watch and listen on the internet. And plus, like I say, I've had, besides the people on the internet, books I've read. I couldn't tell you specifically the books, but just so many different doctors.
Tell me about the class you're teaching.
The class I'm teaching has been called Get Healthier. Originally, it was Way Less, Get Healthier, but then I realized it's Get Healthier, then Way Less. And then it didn't turn out that way. I was thinking it was going to be a support group, but it turned out where I just taught, which I am a passionate teacher at heart. So anyway, it's been where I live here in a senior community, active adults. And and I'm writing a book that I've started called Doctors Don't Know Everything.
And you're sure about that?
I'm positive about that.
My wife's oncologist and I got in a major discussion. He didn't talk to me for 2 months, and it was a nutritional issue. He was an oncologist and a blood specialist. I wanted my wife to have more calcium, just to have her take more calcium. I said, "No, that's not the way it works." And I had to explain to him, what had to happen in order to get calcium in the bone. And then once it gets there, it doesn't stay there very long because it's a entirely different set of chemical requirements to keep it there. And like I say, for about, he thought he was right. And I said, nope, you're not. And
oh, Lord.
So for about 2 months, every time we went in for a visit, and my wife only wanted me to talk. She didn't want to, I mean, everything had to go between the doctor and myself. So
Yeah.
it was awkward, but we eventually got over it. And, we both disagree to disagree. It's fine.
Yeah.
But most doctors, and I'm sure that's part of the title of your book is such that they understand their specialty very well.
Mhm.
They're very good. They can give you a pill for this. They can tell you lots of things. They can even maybe surgically remove something.
Mhm.
But if something can be solved with a natural option as a zinc, what was the one? Gestational diabetes, chromium. 100 years ago, before World War II, doctors were treating women, pregnant women, with chromium for gestational diabetes because the fetus was absorbing extra amount of chromium. And I've had several people, friends of mine, who have diabetes, and I mentioned this to them. They take a little bit of chromium just to kind of see, and all of a sudden their insulin portions are halved. And so it's just, again, our current doctors don't either know it or it's not taught to them.
Mhm.
They have not enough research from clinical tests to say, yes, you can do that.
Mhm.
But I found that doctors, let's say that I have high blood pressure. And if I say, hey, doc, why don't you let me exercise for a couple of months, see if I can get some pounds off and, maybe see if that'll work rather than a blood pressure pill. I found that almost any doctor, if you give them an option of a natural treatment for 2 or 3 months with the promise to come back and monitor, they're pretty reasonable about letting you do what you want to do, but you have to know something first in order to tell them this is what I'm going to do. What's your opinion?
I think you're right. And I just found out, I was looking this up about how much nutrition training that doctors get in medical school, and it's about 11 hours. And so there's no way they can keep up with all the different nutritional things. Plus, they also have to keep up with the current things of their own specialty. And so then these drug people come in and give them the 10-minute spiel about the latest and greatest. And these doctors, they just don't have time because they're dealing with so many things and the patients and the running their business and on and on and on. That's all part of the forward in my book.
Well, tell me a little bit more about your book. How do you start out? What do you cover? what it's important for people to learn from it?
Well, and when I was teaching the class, I have 6 modules, and let me see if I can remember more. Foods to eat or not eat, hormones, vitamins is another one. And here I am, you're catching me off guard. Um,
Well, your book is not published, so I know
that's right. Yeah, and it's subject to change. So those are 3 of the big topics. Another one is insulin resistance, and that's such a huge topic that I cover about today's world and insulin resistance and how people are getting diabetes. I have a statistic of how many people, I don't have it here, but how many people in the United States have diabetes and or insulin resistant. So that is a huge topic for me because my first husband was thin and he kept trying to gain weight. When we first got married, he lived off of Dr. Pepper. Those of you around the world may not know what that is. Similar to Coke, soda, ice cream, and potato chips. And he continued to eat those and continued, besides eating nitrate foods and aspartame drinks, all of this horrible. The diabetes ultimately, what a roller coaster that is. So I saw firsthand how bad that was and how he created that. Nobody in his family had that. And the insulin, that taking of the shots and the roller coaster, that, oh my Lord, that topic. And then there's this high fructose corn syrup that raises our blood sugar, and how people don't know about how bad that is and what it does to our body. And like I say, I could go on and on about that topic because it is so dangerous and it's in everything. And I also looked up how when high fructose corn syrup became so prevalent in the 80s, the government started subsidizing the corn industry. And so for the manufacturers, corn syrup was cheaper than sugar. And so they switched over, and now it's in everything. Even there's a particular grocery store here that puts out their own hamburger buns, and hamburger buns has high fructose corn syrup in it. I could get on my soapbox about this. You want to hear some more? So what do you think, Red?
Well, there's definitely a problem back in the 1976 when we started having the ultra pasteurized processed foods. That's when they linked the beginning of obesity epidemic to that start date, 1976. And when you started adding in the 70s, 80s, where you started looking at, well, if it's a saturated fat, we have a problem. Well, coconut oil and palm oil were used, and they're saturated fats, but they're plant saturated fats. They don't have the same health issues that some animal product saturated fats have. And even that is, depending on who you want to read, there's issues there. But, in order for somebody to do a clinical test, foods are so difficult to do. And that's why you almost can't do one on a food group itself. If you want to do one on T-bone steaks, there's too many variables, and it just doesn't come out the same as having a placebo, randomized, whatever testing being done.
Right.
But the issue of knowing the glycemic index of something, so you know how that sugar affects you, knowing that insulin ramp up is going to occur in that first couple hours, and yet it feels so good. That tastes so good on the tongue.
That's right.
There's a little, carrageenan is a sweet one that is very highly toxic. But it tastes so good in ice cream. It just makes it so velvety smooth. In fact, I'm sure if you remember back to being a kid, we'd go down and get a milkshake. And those things had little bubbles in them. They were velvety. You could sit there and just suck those things down like nobody's business. But you can't do that anymore because they don't make them. They don't make the milk the same way. A lot of things that have preservatives in it. It's very difficult to find things that used to be the way they were back 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
But
So
go ahead.
I wanted to tell you, I found out recently that Chick-fil-A's ice cream has carrageenan in it. I was shocked and disappointed because it was so good, and I had to give it up. I'm not doing that anymore.
I will eat it occasionally, but very rarely. My wife makes our ice cream most of the time.
Yeah.
I buy almost all organic everything,
Hmm.
and I do a lot of label reading on stuff that I don't know.
Me too.
That to me is something that is, if I had to look at improving my health, probably one of the first things I would recommend to people is learn how to read a food label.
There you go.
Pay
Yeah.
attention to the serving size.
Yeah.
Dr. Jacqueline and I have had this conversation many times, and I've talked about it on the show. I tell
Mhm.
people, you want to get healthier? Don't use a dinner plate. Use a salad plate, and only go
Right.
back. Never go back for seconds.
Hmm.
Gradually start caloric restriction, cutting those calories back down.
Right.
Let me tell you a really quick, fast story about my wife. She had about 2014. She had breast cancer, and in the process of going through months of chemo and weeks of radiation, in between those two, the chemo and the radiation, I read a book called The Walls Protocol by Dr. Terry Walls,
Yeah.
WHLS.
Got it. Mhm.
On the first day of radiation, I gave my wife essentially about 1/4 to 1/2 of what the food protocol was for uh, just the basic Walls protocol. And the reason being is the fact that, she is a doctor, and late in life she came down with MS, and for years, no matter what they did, it kept getting worse. She ended up in a wheelchair for years. She did her own study. She published a book, and she put herself on her own protocol. And within 3 years, 3 months, she was able to get out of the wheelchair. A couple of months later, she was able to walk using a cane. By the end of the year, she was bicycling 18 miles, and she'd been, laid up forever, and no matter what the doctors did. So I gave it to my wife, and her biggest thing that I couldn't control at that time was fatigue. No matter what, it was 1, 2, 3 2-hour naps a day.
Yeah.
And so on day one of radiation, which is also supposed to make your fatigue worse,
Hmm.
I started her on this particular protocol. And within 48 hours, she stopped taking naps. By the end of that first week, she was back working, volunteering at the church. On the last day of radiation, we left Houston and drove to Jacksonville, Florida, 2 days. I rented a U-Haul, and 72 hours after her last radiation, she's on the road driving 500 miles a day by herself. Uh,
Wow.
and that's all because of diet. All because
Hmm.
of diet.
Got
And
it.
that was the thing that cemented into me. Yes, I've always had an interest, but that personal story beyond anything else, just like your little story with zinc,
Hmm.
there are certain things that, aha, there must be more than just this.
Right. Absolutely. I love it. That is such a great, and I have that book. Hopefully, I still have it. I've moved 2 or 3 times, but yeah. When I go to the grocery store and we see what these parents put in their basket for their kids, it's just heartbreaking. Because they don't know. They don't know how bad that stuff is, and what's been put in our food system, and the chemicals and the additives, and even how they hide the additive names, and it's really sad because our healthcare system is more like, let's give you a pill and go on. Your body can heal itself, not these pills. And then we talk about the interaction. Like I told you, my mother had this whole cabinet full of pills. And before she died, she had ultimately like 16, 17 different surgeries because, you get the side effects of one of them, and then that causes something else. And then we got to have another pill for that. And my mother was even let go of a assisted living because the nurses couldn't keep up with all the changes in medicine, because she would go to the doctor what seemed like every week, trying to mitigate some of the symptoms she was having. And yeah, that our health system is really, I don't know, can I say broken?
Let me tell you a real quick story. I was in Whataburger, and this has been a couple of years before the pandemic. And there was a woman behind me in a wheelchair, and we're waiting in line, and we were just chatting back and forth. And I don't know how the topic came up, but it came up, and she just volunteered. I'm on 21 different prescriptions. And I said, and my life is terrible. No matter what I do, I'm in pain. I'm up to. And she says, no, she wasn't in a wheelchair. She was standing behind me.
Okay.
And she said, 2 years ago, she was in a wheelchair with all this stuff. And she's standing behind me as healthy as I could possibly look at a person. Thin, trim, very coherent. And she says, I couldn't stand it. I says, I'm either going to die because I says, I'm getting off everything cold turkey. I'm getting off. I says, that's not what you're supposed to do, but that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And her doctor says, don't do that. She said, I don't care. I honestly don't care. I feel so bad. I cannot stand it anymore. And she's cold turkey on everything, and started eating better, paying attention to what she was doing, added exercise after a while. And she gradually got literally her whole health back after living for years and years and years in a wheelchair, unable to do things that, as you said, the side effects of one drug causes something else to happen. It's just,
yeah, it's sad. It's sad. And we do need doctors, but they still don't know everything.
well, I have several. It seems like now that I'm getting older and older, I'm picking up a new specialty each year. I don't want to do that.
I know.
But the good thing is I'm on a 6-month visit cycle now, that they'll come in. Okay, we're just going to do a look real quick, or we're just going to get a blood sample. And if anything's bad, we'll let you know. But every 6 months I haven't missed an annual physical since 1968.
Okay.
I had 31 years with the Navy flight physicals, and then that kind of got me into a habit. But I totally believe, and you have to know where you are. I had, in December, I had one of my brothers died, and one of my sister-in-laws died. And both were from the time that they really found out what they had to the time they were in hospice for 2 days or less, and they passed away. They had not been, really to a doctor and knew something about, if you don't know where you are, how do you know where you're going?
Right.
And if you're going to fix something, it's a whole lot easier to fix it when 6 months ago you didn't have that, but you have it now. That's a whole lot easier to fix than, the tumor's the size of a softball, and we give you 2 months, and it's crazy. Yeah, it may cost you some money for a health exam, but there's wellness exams that don't cost a whole lot.
Right.
You can go down and get your own blood test now. Are you familiar with C-reactive protein?
Absolutely. Our inflammation marker. Absolutely. I know.
So that's one that I totally believe in, and it's just to add that one. I don't know why the medical profession does not consider that to be a standard test, along with all the other blood tests they give you.
And I've had some doctors tell me it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. That story about the checkups and things like that, I talk to my husband all the time about that. It's like your car. I mean, he's so interested in making sure our car gets a checkup that I said, this is like your body. When the check engine light comes on, you do something. And we need to check that before anything else happens. And so he's not interested in those kind of tests. However, I am. So we go. I try. He goes not willingly. So we've got to keep up with these numbers, because you're right. If we don't know where we are now, we don't know what's coming up. And you mentioned Parkinson's. Both my brother, my grandfather, my father, and my brother all had Parkinson's. So I did the 23andMe to see if I had the marker for Parkinson's, and thank God I don't. So anyway, you've gone through a lot.
Well, let's talk about your original book was Lose Weight and Get Healthy.
It was the original topic of my class was get healthy, lose weight, get healthier. Okay. And then I realized it should be get healthier, then lose weight. So.
Okay, so let's say somebody comes into your class, or somebody is a client of yours, or giving a presentation to a group of people, and let's say that they're not diabetic, but they're 30, 40 pounds overweight. They have a limited lifestyle as far as being active. Why don't you kind of lead us through what kind of lifestyle changes someone should consider to get healthier?
Oh yeah, that there's I call it the typical ones. It's the sleep, get better sleep, eat better foods. I think whole foods are better. Definitely they are, and you shop on the outer perimeter of the grocery store, and not all of them down those aisles with all that processed food. Anything that comes out of a manufacturing plant, is not good for the most part. Then to get the exercise, that's standard on so many things. Portion control, like you mentioned, smaller plate. I personally have eaten off of a salad plate for years and years and years and years. And another big tenet of mine is fiber, more fiber, because fiber reduces the carb count. And so many people are talking about low carb, low carb, low carb. Well, if you add the fiber in and you see on the nutrition label that there's some fiber, you subtract the fiber count from the carbohydrate count and get the net carbs. So those are some of the big ones that I can think of right off the top of my head. Let's see. Exercise, I think I mentioned that for sure. We've all got, and that reduces our insulin level. And that's another topic I'm big on is insulin. And people don't know that blood sugar and insulin are two different things, and how insulin is a blood storing, fat storing hormone. So that's another thing I cover in my class. What else was it you wanted to know?
Do you cover stress?
Stress, yes. Thank you. Cortisol. Cortisol continues to make fat on our bellies. Yeah, I have a whole section on hormones. That's another one of my modules in my book. I mean, in my class, yes. What else?
It's hard to keep our hormones balanced if we're not having balanced nutrition coming in the door to start with, because that's kind of where everything really happens. And then your gut microbiome. You talk about fiber, that's super good, not only just from a healthy perspective, but if you start switching over to a ketogenic diet and you start to give up carbs, now all of a sudden you have problems with constipation and other things, and that fiber really helps in that regard.
That's right. That's right. And another big thing today is intermittent fasting. I don't know, that's a big word that a lot of people don't know. And you want me to explain that one?
Go right ahead.
All right. So if we're doing intermittent fasting, it's called an eating window. So whether it's an 8-hour window, a 12-hour window, then the rest of the 24 hours, your body is healing itself. It's cleansing your cells of the dead cell things. And so then autophagy is a word that's used for aging backwards. And so I don't know if you can tell, but I'm over 70, so hopefully that shows up. Anyway, but yeah, that's a big thing about aging backwards. It makes our skin better, makes we sleep better, all kinds of health benefits of intermittent fasting and the ketogenic diet of low carb.
How about extended fasting? Have you done any of that?
No, that's not something that I can't do. I can't do. I can do the 8-hour window, but I don't know. Yeah.
I do a 72-hour fast every month. Most of the time it ends up being 100 plus. Last year for Lent, which is getting ready to start again here very quickly. I started out with a 200 plus hour fast, and then I ended it with a 180-hour fast. But I find 72 hours very easy to do. And your autophagy talk is absolutely on point.
Right.
If you don't allow autophagy to happen, and that also can be a contributing factor, I believe, to Parkinson's and other aspects of dementia. The cells are never allowed to get cleaned.
To rest.
A lot of leftover debris just from normal cellular operations. You start choking the mitochondria, you start doing a lot of other things.
Right.
And you do an intermittent fast, you allow the autophagy to start, but then it starts at about 16, 18 hours, but it doesn't get to 100% until it's about 70 hours, 60, 70, somewhere in that range, depending. So you really need a little bit longer than an intermittent fast to really take benefit of the autophagy. That's my understanding.
Sure. Yeah. Another factor is that our immune system is in our gut, in our intestines, and vitamin D is so critical. And make sure you have your blood test done and check your vitamin D levels, because I never got COVID, and I wasn't worried about it either. So vitamin D is so critical for so many things. But yeah, our gut and our immune system, there's all these things going around now, the flu shot and the COVID's back and the RSV and on and on and on. But it has to do with our digestive system.
Okay, so you have a need to have food on a regular basis within a 24-hour window.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. I've never tried 24-hour fasting, okay? Do you remember Oprah when she did the liquid fast? Do you remember that? Well, I try that. I have a list in my class. I have a list of, I don't know, 20 or 30 ways to lose weight that are all popular. And one of them was the liquid diet, liquid whatever she did. And I did that and I lost weight. But, ultimately over the year or two, I gained it back slowly, slowly. But, so that's the most fasting I've done. I've never really tried it. Maybe one of these days I'll get brave and try
Yeah,
it.
there's a Dr. Walter Longo, Longo. He's out of one of the California systems, and he came up with the 72-hour fast, and it kind of ties in with autophagy very, very closely. Is the
Uh,
fact that at 72 hours, you actually rebuild your immune system from scratch.
ooh,
Because at that point in time, your body has eliminated through the cellular autophagy all
mhm.
of disconnected, non-functioning uh, molecules, any DNA, anything. Your body does a total repair. And they found that if you extend it to 120 hours, that you can actually take and make alpha cells into beta cells in the pancreas. And they've actually been able to, in animals, reverse type 1 diabetes. And it works very, very well in many, many things. So fasting to me, I think, is a major portion of being healthy.
Mm,
And a lot of things in there that can be done.
yeah.
From your perspective of health, okay, we have the food choices, which you've talked about. You talked a little bit about exercise. So why don't we go down that road, exercise?
All right. What would you like to know?
Well,
People say that word all the time. You know that and all these different topics that I teach. All the research. Everybody says, okay, but exercise is the big thing. So go
let's
ahead.
get that same 30, 40-pound overweight person who wants to improve their overall health. Okay, you have them trained on reading labels. They know a little bit about what foods to select.
Yeah.
Let's jump into the next area of being healthy. Let's talk about exercise for a short while. Let's, give me your presentation, few sentences on what would you tell somebody in your audience that, hey, this is the kind of exercise that you're going to get the most bang for the buck out of.
Okay, you want to know the one that I knew this because I actually used to sell them. You've heard of a rebounder?
Yes.
A rebounder is one of the best, best, best of all of them. And like I say, years and years ago, I've been an entrepreneur, so I was selling rebounders back then. And just recently, I got a new one because we moved. Like I said, we moved a few times. We downsized, didn't have room, whatever, whatever. But that is one of the number one things. The other thing about exercise is there's so many ways. It's all about movement, and there's so many ways to do that. And one of the big tenets that I believe in is make it fun. I used to play racquetball, and it was racquetball light, not the hard hitting. But I love racquetball. I love skating. Remember years ago, I used to skate. We had more and more skating rinks back then. But here's a new one I just learned about a year ago, and it's adult drumming. Have you heard of that?
I have not.
Senior drumming for seniors is there's a whole bunch of YouTube videos about that, and it is you can do it a couple of ways. Number one, you can get one of those big, massive exercise balls and set it up on a trash can or something, and get you some drumsticks and follow along to music with patterns that are drumming. And they actually used it. They use it in some health facilities and some senior places. But you can use that big exercise ball. You can also do it with just a plastic trash can, and you can do it either standing up or sitting down, depending on your situation. But it's fun because, like I say, they're playing music that I'm following along with on YouTube of different songs, and some of them the oldies that I like, and just various ones that have a rhythm. And I used to love to dance. Now I say used to. Here's the thing: I fell off a ladder 40 years ago and have had ankle problems. Well, for a lot of years it was fine, but then over the years, one thing and another happened. A couple of years ago, I had 3 ankle surgeries in 1 year, and ultimately lost my ankle. So right now, I'm doing more sitting things because I'm having to learn how to walk with a prosthesis. So, but movement, there's yoga, there's sitting yoga, there's sitting exercises, there's all kinds of videos, but make it fun, just movement in general. And I've talked to my husband all the time about that because he loves sitting in his big recliner. Oh. And getting in the water. That's another one I love. Just get me in the water. So
if you can't do dancing with the oldies, you can do drumming with the oldies.
That's right. You got it.
Okay, we're toward the end. I want to cover two more subjects with you quickly if we can. One is sleep, and the other one is stress.
Okay.
How do you want to tackle that?
Well, one thing I have read about is sleeping with no electronics in your room, and also, and I even cover up my. I have a clock, my nightstand. I make sure that beam of light is not right in my eyes. I cover up something, for that. And so the other thing is having the room dark. And so I got me some room darkening curtains. And so that makes it so much better because light in the room, the light from our cell phones, the TV, the iPads, all of that affects our sleep and being able to sleep soundly. There's things about, and I've learned this the hard way, is if I eat something way too late at night, then I have problems sleeping about that. Even alcohol will make you real sleepy for a while and then you wake up. So sleep is so critical. That's when our body's healing itself. And Lord knows we need healing all the time, just like the autophagy and fasting. So to make your room comfortable and a sound supportive mattress and those kind of things, that is all critical. Light is really bad, and like I say, the electronics is bad.
The blue light from electronics has some bad things with your health. Two things for stress reduction, stress management. What do you recommend?
I will have to confess that I haven't done that much stress research, but however, I do know that soft music, I play soft music all the time, and there's some stress. Even there's some videos about getting back to sleep. There's another thing about sleep is that there's something about 3 a.m. And there's a bunch of people in this world that wake up at 3 a.m. And so there's some videos about getting back to sleep and videos to help you calm down. And because we're in such a tight, and there's stress of the news and the world. And that's, oh Lord, that's a topic for sure, is taking care of what goes into your mind. Because when we focus on that negative things that can happen, are happening, we have no control over our health, our future, what are we going to do, worry, and it all is combined. And all of that increases our cortisol level, which there again affects our health, and it creates more body fat and things like that cortisol hormone. And so we've got to do something to reduce that stress. And that my husband loves the news. He has a degree in journalism, and we live with the news. And I get to where I have to make him put his headset on so I don't have to hear it anymore, because it's keeping us all stressed up. And you got to watch what goes in your mind, and negative people around you, and getting rid of toxic people also is another thing that causes stress.
A health coach, who is a good client for you? How do they get in touch with you? And then we'll close out the show with that.
Right now, it seems as though women are drawn to me, and a few men, but and I think women are more in tune to their health. That's another thing I tell my husband is I don't want to be a widow. And it seems like there's more widows than there are widowers, because I don't know. My theory is women are more in tune to their health and take care of their health more. So the ideal person is really anybody, but nurses for one, just, I hate to say women in general but mostly women over 45 that are now in tune or want to do something about their health, because health things are showing up. The way they get in touch with me is by my email, gethealthiercoach at Gmail. You can see on the screen. And that's the best way. And nurses, I found out that nurses only get one course, if less, than in health nutrition lessons too. And there they are in the healthcare system. And if you look around, they need some help.
So for our audio audiences out there, it's gethealthiercoach@gmail.com. So gethealthiercoach at gmail.com.
Right.
Jane, thank you so very, very much. I really appreciate you joining us today.
Can I tell you about my free giveaway?
Absolutely. Please tell us.
Okay. So it's kind of a version of Eat This, Not That. That was a big book around. And what it really is my own version. It's called Food Dangers and Better Substitutes. So I have a list of, oh Lord, looks like 30 things on here about food dangers and better substitutes that I'll be glad to, if somebody emails me, put the word free in the subject line and I'll get that to you.
Okay, so gethealthiercoach@gmail.com. In the subject line, put the word free, and you will return back to them a copy of your food list and options that are better
substitutes.
Better substitutes.
Yeah, it's easy changes.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Jane. Really and truly appreciate it. Jane Moughon, gethealthiercoach@gmail.com.
Thank you.
Take care. Hi, Red O'Laughlin here, getting ready to wrap up the Wise Ones today. And in right around 20 minutes, we have Talking Heads coming up. We're still talking about how to optimize your health in 2024. And today I'm going into some of the more details. We left last week with fitness, and fitness being an encompassing term of many, many different aspects that we can measure, such as physical activity and diet and nutrition and things that we talked about here today. And so today I plan on going into some specific aspects of whole body, healthy body, things that, sometimes we think about them, sometimes we don't. And then gradually start getting into the diet, into things. So that's my focus today, is to start that part of our program. To start it out as potentially an 8-week program. Looks like probably be a little bit longer than that. And I think today is week number 5. I could be wrong. But anyway, we're into the new year and continuing on. And please join me on Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And take care. Bye now.